Hi, I'm Jessica and I'm going by Stitching Colours here on Flosstube. Welcome to my second video. Today I'm going to do an update on what I've been working on over the last 2 weeks and answer a few questions that have been asked based on the Whip Parade. But first, I'd like to say thank you so much to everybody who liked, watched, subscribed and commented on the previous video. I was amazed. I was never expecting this kind of response, and so thank you so much. I worked on a total of 5 pieces over the last 2 weeks with a total of 14,417 stitches. The first piece I worked on was the planned new start of the Fairytale sampler by Dragon Dreams, which is this one. Without getting the glare. So I completed 1,598 stitches on it in one day, and this included the top section and the back stitching followed by the writing. So the next part that I have to do is the first lot of specialty stitches. So that is looking really amazing. I just couldn't believe it when I saw the difference that the back stitching made. So this is stitch 2/2 on 28 count casual linen in the colour Vintage Lavender. I couldn't get the cord for fabric or anything close to it. I don't think it's in production anymore as far as I can tell, or at least I can't source it here in New Zealand. The next piece I worked on was the Mythical alphabet, which was the 2020 stitch along from Pain Free based on the artwork by Stanley Morrison. So I worked on this also for one day for a total of 1,638 stitches. So you can see where I'm up to now. I did a little bit more on this border down here, and then my focus went over at this section of the border. I can definitely see that I should be working on letters before the end of the year, which will be very exciting. So that was a total of 1,638 stitches, and that piece is stitch 2/2 on 28 count easy guide. The third project I worked on was my evening in the park for 4 days, and this is received a total of 3,292 stitches. So I was working on the trees, the lanterns and the snow at the bottom. So I've not, let's do that. I have not done the back stitching or added the beads in as yet. I will do that at the end once I've done all 4 sides of the trees and the lamps. So someone requested a closer up view. Let me just adjust this so I can make sure we're still in frame. Yep, okay. So that is the bottom, and you'll see I'll just slowly move it up until you get to the halfway point. Because it is a mirror image, well, it's duplicated across the 4 sides. So you'll see this is from the top of the center medallion, and down. So just for reference, where can I get it fully in? There. So as mentioned last time, this is stitched on 32 count linen by the Crosswing collection in the colour Midnight. So this is a hand painted fabric, and I have to say I love it. So for those of you who think you can't stitch a chatelaine because it's too hard, or you're daunted by the thought of it, I started mine this last May. There we go. And up until that point, the only non-full coverage piece that I had worked on was the Snow Queen Mirabilia, which in itself was a pretty big thing. I also had not finished it. I had done less than a quarter of it. I have since finished it, but at that point I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I bought the kit and went, well, let's start it. Yeah, it may not have been the wisest decision, but I learned a lot from it. And in all honesty, they're not that challenging. It's just getting the hang of reading the pattern around what the specialty stitches are and where they'll go. I found I did all the cross stitching first and then all of the specialty stitches and just fitted in where they were supposed to, and then the beads went on top. It was interesting at first reading the instructions for it, because as far as I can tell, they're not written in a way that I've seen with other patterns. I've done other patterns and seen other patterns with specialty stitches in them since, and they're not as complicated to read. But I think a lot of that is all just the variations of threads with the petite pearl, your metallics, and the variations of stitches. You've got cross stitches, you've got everything. So you'll see with this one that I was working on these trees and the lanterns down here, and all around these they've got half stitches amongst them, and all of the trees are they're kind of mirror imaged on each other. I know a lot of people seem to struggle when they get to the trees, but I actually found them quite easy and fun to work on. But that could be because I decided to do the snow, trees and lamps at the same time, so I had a little bit more variation than what some people do. When I was working on these corner medallions, on these medallions here, was to take a screenshot of the coloured pattern and put it in Pattern Keeper. It made my life so much easier, especially rather than using GoodNotes, which I was using before. It won't allow you to select colours or anything like that when you put it in Pattern Keeper from a photo, but it will allow you to mark off all of those stitches. I always find that stitching over two seems to be quicker. I'm not quite sure why, or whether it's just when I'm stitching over two, I'm not doing huge, highly confetti areas and pieces like what I would with a Heaven and Earth Designs or another full coverage. The next piece I worked on was Dragon Race into the Night. This is the Heaven and Earth Designs chart with the artwork done by Rose Khan. So I worked on this for 6 days for a total of 6,763 stitches. So this is stitched on 25 count 1/1, and since you've last seen it, here we go, I've worked on this, completed one page. So you'll see the green dragon is there is a purple dragon coming in here and a blue dragon coming in up the top. This is the halfway point across the whole piece. So after this point, it starts to filter into being a nighttime scene in the night sky. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that blending comes across. I'm not too concerned given how that top left hand corner went and how you don't even notice it now. I didn't want to put this one down, but it came to the 1st of September, and based on my plans I needed to change over to a new piece. So first what I did was I flipped a coin to decide whether I would work on full coverage or non-full coverage first. I find that once I get my eye in, which I do very quickly, for non-full coverage and stitching over to, that I tend to like to follow on with and work on most of those non-full coverage pieces all in a row. It seems to work better for me, progress wise and motivation wise. So this, after I had decided with the coin toss that I was working on full coverage, I put all of my full coverage into the Tiny Decisions app and spun the wheel for it and worked it out for every 2 days until the end of the month. Well, until I got to the end of the full coverage pieces, and then I had to go to the other wheel for the non-full coverages. So the first piece that showed up on the list was Blackbeard by Adrian Chesterman, and that is charted by Pain Free Crafts. So I worked on that for 2 days and got 1126 stitches completed. So this has been mainly just starting this next page, and so it's filled in a bit more of the sky and especially around the edge of where the flag finishes. So it's coming along. I wanted to work on it longer, but today I have to move on to another piece, which is the Wizard Septimus. So that is all of the pieces I've worked on over the last 2 weeks. There have been a few questions. I have answered them in the comments, but just in case anyone else is wondering the same questions, I tend to get about 1,000 stitches on average done per day. It's more during the weekend and less during the week with work. I organise my threads on thread drops, like so, or Annie's Keepers, and find that that works great for me at the moment. We'll see if that continues to be the case. I initially, when I started stitching, I used Ziploc bags, and over time I got very sick of opening and closing bags to put threads in and out, so I changed over to bobbins, and that worked great for a while. I wasn't having to open and close all those bags all the time, but I found that I didn't particularly like having to wind the thread on and off the bobbins every time I wanted to grab some thread. So I moved on from there onto thread drops, and I bought quite a few packets of them. I've still got some left over, which I use every now and again. I then went on to Annie's Keepers because I looked at price wise. I think Annie's Keepers are a little bit cheaper. I recently tried putting holes in playing cards as an option, but found that they're not hardy enough when you're pulling threads out of them. So try something else maybe. I've still got one project that is on bobbins. I kitted it up about a year before I started it, and while I've moved on to thread drops since then, they're still on there. And I have to say, now being with thread drops, the kinks are very annoying when I'm stitching, but it's the last piece, and it's my Twisted Rainbow sampler, so I kind of am going to leave it as is for now. As you will all be aware, there is a Heaven and Earth Designs sale currently on, and I have already been there and bought a few patterns and have a few planned to start. One in particular I want to start is the Christmas Lodge by Dominic Davidson, that I'm planning on starting on the 1st of December. When I saw the Christmas Lodge pattern by Dominic Davidson released on the Heaven and Earth Designs Facebook page, I fell in love and knew I had to have it, and I knew I had to start it this Christmas. Unlike a lot of other Christmas pieces, there's not a huge amount of snow on the ground. There's a little bit of snow in the mountains, but compared to other ones, it really seemed to fit quite nicely with a more southern hemisphere Christmas vibe. We don't have snow. Stitching snow in summer for a Christmas piece doesn't seem to quite make sense. So I hope everyone enjoyed this video, and like, subscribe if you want to see more. I should have another update in a couple of weeks. There will be a few more pieces posted because of the challenge that I've given myself to work on all of my pieces for 2 days in September is almost a sample of each piece. I hope you all have a good weekend and enjoy the rest of the next couple of weeks. All right, thank you. Bye.